So, Carol, thank you ever so much for doing this again. It's very kind
Pleasure.
of you to spend your time
Pleasure.
explaining to people about all these strange things that happen in your life, because you do have a lot of strange things that happen in your life. I'm going to start calling you Strange Carol.
Oh, you're not the only one. A lot of people think I'm a bit weird, but that's it.
But that's their problem, frankly, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, now taking you back to the story when we were talking about the number plate that showed up in front of you, the X Scott H.
Yeah.
And there was a story about that. And then you reminded me after, or you told me after, that additional information, the bit about you weren't even supposed to be on that road.
No, the day, it was 27th of December last year, 2023. We dropped my dad back home to Welwyn Garden City, and we were coming back. To me, it seemed like I'd spent all day, well, I had literally in the car, and of course the sales were on, so that, you know, you pass in all these shopping or going near all these shopping centres and there's traffic. So normally we would come, to get back to where I live, we would come down the M25, take the 127 and then come in that way. M25, junction 29, 127, and then coming via Rayleigh. But the M25 was just a nightmare and we just wanted to get off. So we actually took a turning earlier. We took the A12 because then I can come home the back route and come through Battles Bridge, go down the A12, Battles Bridge, and come in to Rochford that way. So that's what we did. So normally we would not have been on the route that we'd taken. It's just another route, but it's
So
not
it's that
the
split
normal
decision,
one.
the split decision, isn't it? And if you hadn't made that decision, so Ray made the decision, did he? I don't suppose you can remember now, can you? Was there a conversation? He just decided without mentioning it, or what happened?
I can't remember who decided it, because quite often I tell him what route to take, even though he's
Naturally.
driving. So it could have been me. It might have been him. I can't remember that. But all I know is it's not the normal route we would have taken.
Okay, excellent. Now, thinking about your husband, since we've recorded our last recording, your husband has reminded you of something that happened to him, hasn't he? Is it okay if we just talk about the story of where he was working at a place where no one wanted to go in the basement?
Yeah, all the other workers, when they were due a call at this place, he worked for Eastern Electricity, the electricity company at the time. It's been renamed and rebranded a million times since. But he worked at Eastern Electricity and they were due to call on this place in Hoddesdon, which is Hertfordshire, a shop, commercial premises. And none of his other colleagues ever wanted to go in this building downstairs because the meters were downstairs in the basement. So Ray decided he would go. And he's standing in the shop before he went into the basement, talking to the man in the shop about this feeling that the colleagues would get, this feeling of unease. And at the time they were standing there talking about it, across the other side of the room was these shelves, several shelves on the wall with lots of things on them. And all of a sudden, everything on the shelves just shot off, fell on the floor. He's not a total disbeliever, but he's a bit kind of sceptical at times.
So what did he think of that then?
Well, I think being married to me, he's opened his mind a bit, because I've told him about lots of things that have happened to me, but he's not as kind of spiritual and open as I am.
So how did he explain that event to himself?
He's gone out of the room now, so I can't even ask him. I think he felt there was something there and his colleagues weren't all wrong.
Okay, so he didn't put it down to some sort of electro problem with electricity.
No.
He didn't put it down to anything scientific. He literally did also wonder what had caused that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other experience about the Green Man.
He was brought up in Old Harlow and he was cycling home late at night, probably about midnight, 1 a.m, and he came past a pub called the Green Man, and as he came past, this white apparition just walked across in front, and he said he couldn't pedal fast enough after that. He just walked across the road in front of him. He knows that those two incidents can't be explained scientifically. He knows what he saw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back to you now. Thanks for those stories. Thanks for sharing that,
That's right.
Carol. Thinking about the book that had, are we allowed to say your surname on here? Or should we just
Yeah.
make up another name? We could say another
No.
name for the surname.
No, that's fine. Say my surname.
Okay.
Fine.
Come on then, let's tell me the story about the book.
But that was my maiden name, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want me to go and get it?
Yeah, go on.
Right, okay.
Thank
I
you.
can walk you upstairs. Right. My friend who I went to school with, and obviously when she first knew me, she knew me by my maiden name, was in a library. I think she said that was Silverbridge. I think she said it was local to her anyway, and she lives in Hertfordshire. And she sent me a photo of this book, and I think she sent me the blurb on the back as well. The book is called Unbury Carol. And the blurb on the back talks about only 3 people know Carol Evers' secret. Well, Carol Evers was my maiden name, and Evers isn't that popular a name, is it, really?
I've never heard of
I hold it up.
I've never heard of that name before. Her best friend who's
Can you
dead,
see?
and that's, I can say, her husband who hates her, her ex-lover who left her. That's so weird. And it was your best friend who picked the book up.
It was. She was a friend. She was a best friend at school at one point. Yeah, but
God, that's so scary, isn't it?
Still in touch.
Oh,
yeah. So
and you're halfway
go.
through reading it. You're reading it now, so.
No, I'm not reading it now, but it's there. It's going to be the
Ready.
next book I read. Unbury Carol. So yeah, that would be a good read, I reckon.
That is unbelievable, isn't it? How many people out there listening, dear viewers, if you're watching this, if anyone's ever had that experience where you've picked a book up or someone's read a book and it's had your actual name in it, let us know, because I think that's really unlikely to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And also there's 2 ways of spelling Carol, isn't there? There's one with the E and one without, and I'm without. And my maiden name, it's not a name you hear every day. I think there's a building company that was Evers, and I think there's an actor by the name of Evers.
I've never heard it before, honestly. And for her to have picked it up is unbelievable. That's the coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, thinking about your dreams, the ones that you sort of bit of premonition type dreams, and you had the dream about a disco and sort of like a dance thing.
Yeah.
Start with that one. Go on.
Plug for middle-aged spread, I'll tell you.
Go on.
They are brilliant. Right. So I used to go to this meeting on a Friday with some friends, and it was a spiritualist meeting. It was like, but it got to the point where I thought, I come here every week. I'm not getting any messages, and the messages that people are getting are very generic. It could apply to anybody in this room, and I feel like I need to change it up a bit. I need to do something different on a Friday night. And I can remember having this dream where I've come out of this place that I usually go to on a Friday, or used to go to on a Friday night with my friends, and we've kind of gone off and walked into this establishment, and we've gone down into a basement, and there's music, and we've gone into this disco, and there's disco lights. It's dark, and I've got this real feeling of euphoria, and it's this feeling like I've come home. This is brilliant, and I've really, really enjoyed it, and it's playing all the music I like. And then after that dream, I came to learn about such a thing called middle-aged spread in Westcliff, and it's the DJs are of a certain age. The clientele is of a certain age. Anything, I would say, from mid-30s up to about mid-60s, 70 in that place. And people are there. It's in a basement underneath a pub, and people there are just there to enjoy the music, and the music isn't the sort of music that you go to a wedding or a birthday party and you get dragged up to the same old rubbish, and you're dancing and you think, oh, I don't want to dance this is all really good stuff, anything from the electro pop of the 80s, so Depeche Mode, Alison Moyer, Yazoo, and right up to more up to date stuff like Faithless, and it's really good dancey stuff. And I don't sit down all night, and when I get there, I get this feeling like euphoric, like, and it's not on all the time. It's only on about every 2 or 3 months, so I'd never get bored of it. And I look, the next. I look forward to the next event. So yeah.
So you
I
walked
believe
in
that
there. So you walked in there. Go on, sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted you. You believe that was what? You believe that was meant to happen?
Yeah, I think it was a premonition about things to come on a Friday night. The next one actually is a Saturday afternoon, but yeah, it's usually on a Friday night.
So
It's
were
brilliant.
you feeling, when you very first walked in there, did you remember your dream?
Well, I didn't, because I got there early and nobody else was there really. But when it got going, and they started playing all this good music, and everybody's so nice in there. Everybody's there for the same reason, to have a good time and enjoy the music. I'm thinking, this is what I dreamt. This is the thing I dreamt about. It's in a basement. It's dark. You've got the lights. Got the dry ice now and again. It's exactly as I remember in my dream. And this feeling I have in here, like, I'm happy. I'm happy because I love my music.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's
It was
really
when it got
amazing.
going, I realised this was what I dreamt.
Yeah. Okay, taking you back to when you lived in Finsbury Park.
Yeah.
Or when your nan had a house in Finsbury Park to go
Yeah.
and visit her. Can you talk to us about the room?
That room was evil. It was really, really evil. And it's not just me that felt that. I have 2 cousins, John and Margaret, and they used to sleep in that room and they used to stay with her. And it was evil. So the sort of room, the sort of house she had was, they call them mansions. They're like the old upstairs, downstairs. Remember upstairs, downstairs, where you got the servants downstairs and the hoi polloi living up above. It was one of those. So there's big Victorian house, and it was divided into flats. So my nan's house, the entrance, you went up steps and there was this massive front door, and you go in the entrance hall, and then you had, it's weird, you had the front room, which was her bedroom, then the back room, which was the spare bedroom, and then she had what would have been the servants' quarters downstairs. You go downstairs and you had the kitchen, which actually was her living room and dining room, and then her kitchen, which was called the scullery, because as in Victorian times, that was what it was like.
They had scullery maids, didn't they?
Yeah,
that was a job. You could be a scullery maid.
That's it. So it was this back bedroom on the ground floor that when I stayed there, I used to sleep in, and it was just walking in there. The front bedroom wasn't like, the front bedroom was light and bright, and even though it was old fashioned and Victorian, I didn't get that feeling. But that back bedroom, there was something evil in that back bedroom. It had an old winged dressing table.
Oh.
Just this dressing table in front of this massive sash window with the old shutters that they put on in the war for blackout. And my nan still used those shutters. When she come to bed, she slept in that room as well. She used to, when I stayed there, she used to put I think she slept in the room when I stayed there because she knew I was so scared.
Did she say she felt anything? Did she feel anything?
No, my nan was really sceptical, although she did say once she saw one thing. I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you about that later. So this winged dressing table in front of the window, I used to see what I think was a little old man scuttling behind.
Oh.
And just weird things, goings on, sightings. And my nana put it down to, oh, you're only having a dread. Her bed was this big double bed, and when as a kid I used to have to take a run up to it because it seemed really high up, and it had a big wooden headboard, and at the end a big wooden thing, like not a headboard because it's down but it's the same as the headboard down the end. And she said she saw something on the end of the headboard down the end, and it flew off and went out the window. And there's a couple of sightings people have seen, like I don't want to say my mum or my aunt. They were outside in the garden and they saw what they thought was somebody standing. They didn't see the person, but they saw, when somebody inhales on a cigarette and the end lights up, and they saw this in by the window, even though there was nobody in that room at the time.
She saw a red light.
Yeah, it was like, an orange glow from like the end of the cigarette being inhaled by the window. And she came in because my mum was in there, my dad was in there. They were going out at the time in the downstairs, in the kitchen that was the dining room and the living room. They were all in there, and my aunt's boyfriend at the time, and her sister and her sister's boyfriend. So the 3 girls and the 3 boyfriends. And she went in and she said, has anybody just been up to the bedroom? And they hadn't. They'd all been in there. And she knew that. But there was nobody in that bedroom at the time.
So was that the bedroom with the shutters?
Yeah. And at the time, my granddad had parted company with my grandmother. He wasn't living at the establishment. He wasn't living at the house. She's laying on the bed with her back to the window, and she's turned round and she's seen my granddad, although she knew it wasn't him, effectively kneeling on the window ledge outside, because those old Victorian houses, the window ledges were quite wide. They had window boxes and things on them. And he was kneeling on this window ledge looking through the window at her, and he would have been up because you had the basement, and this window was, if you stood outside, the window was up. Although it was the first ground floor, it was up. Because as you come in the front door, the steps go up. So the ground floor is up. So she knew.
Down. It's a long drop. If he dropped off, he would have really injured himself if that had been him.
Yeah,
right?
She knew it wasn't him. He wasn't living there. And what on earth was he doing kneeling on the window ledge? And that was at the time where he was practicing this astral projection, this astral travel.
Mm.
Anyway, she's freaked out, and she's turned round, so her back's to the window again. And then she's looked back and she said, I've seen him at the bed, by the bed doing this.
Oh, that's just so scary. I find that so scary. It's just like an instant move, isn't it?
Yeah, so she's turned away again, and she's come downstairs later on, unnerved, and he had come into the house. Although he wasn't living there, he'd come into the house, and he looked at her as if he knew something, and he went, all right. And she never said anything, but he knew. It was almost like, and this was when he was doing this astral travel, astral projection.
Oh, it's a shame they didn't have a conversation about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What were you doing? You freaked me out.
Yeah, exactly. Because he could have said to her, yeah, I was astral travelling. I can remember sitting on the bed and looking at you. And then it would have confirmed for her that had happened. But he didn't. Never mind.
No.
But still, it's a weird experience to have, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's all in this room.
And all in that room.
Yeah, just horrible. My aunt, this same aunt, when I used to stay there as a child, she used to agree with me that there was something horrible in that room. And at bedtime, I used to dread it. Anyway, she said, and I remember her doing this, she used to come up to bed with me, sit there until I'd go to sleep, just sit on the bed with the light on until I go to, and then she'd say, when I go down, I'll leave the light on, a lamp. And then I'd go to sleep, and then I'd wake up and she wasn't there, and I was just terrified, and I used to scream, and she'd come up again. but she had all the patience in the world for me doing this, because she sensed something in that room as well. My cousin, who's very, very spiritual. Maggie is very spiritual. Maggie has said there was something in that room. And her brother, John, who I would say slightly not sceptical, but not as spiritual as Maggie, he says the same. You know, he had times where he spent in that room and he hated it. Horrible.
Instinctively know there's something not right about it. Thinking about the light bulb story, Carol, do you remember the story about the light bulbs?
Yeah, several light bulbs there.
Several light bulb stories. Go on.
Where I lived as a child in Enfield, in the flat,
it was near the Enfield poltergeist house, wasn't it? Because there was a really famous house in Enfield that was haunted by poltergeists, and it was all over TV, and there's been documentaries made about it, haven't there? And you didn't live that far from there. How close were you?
Probably about 3 miles.
3 miles, yeah. And you were about the same age, and it was all happening at around the same time?
Yes, it was. There was all sorts of goings on in that flat, but it culminated in this. These light bulbs kept flying out of the different light fittings. So, first of all, the one in my bedroom, I was with my friend one Saturday morning. We were mucking about. My dad had given me an old, God, they're museum pieces now, like reel-to-reel tape recorders, massive things, massive, yeah. And me and Libby were mucking about, recording rubbish on this reel-to-reel tape recorder. And it came out what happened. It was recorded on this tape recorder. All of a sudden, Libby screamed when it happened, and this light bulb shot out and hit her on the head. This light bulb and then it smashed on the floor. So that was that. For no reason. It was in broad daylight. The light bulb wasn't even on. It's not as if it got warm and expanded. It was broad daylight. It was a Saturday morning. And this light bulb shot out, hit her, and smashed on the floor. So that was that.
What are the chances of it hitting her on the head as well?
Yeah. And then I told my friend Maureen, who lived over the road, about this light bulb. She's gone home and told her mum about this light bulb. And her mum's sitting in an armchair, and in the centre of the room, the light fitting had several light bulbs. And the one nearest to her mum, after she told her about this thing, shot out and fell in front of her mum's feet. So that was that. And then I'd been over to see my nan, my other nan in Woolwich, not the nan who lived in the funny house in Finsbury Park. And just after I left, this all happened in the space of a few weeks. Just after I left, my nan's living room light bulb fell out and came out and fell on her head. So, yeah.
That's just horrible, isn't it? And then there was a story about the heater in summer.
Yeah, this thing in my flat seemed to like to muck about with electrical hoods. And one summer I came home and my bedroom was baking hot because whatever it was decided to switch the heater on while we were all out. And I know I hadn't touched that heater. I would never touch that heater in the summer because it didn't have central heating as such. It was a wall-mounted electric, they called them radiators, it was a wall heater. And it had been switched on in a house that was empty. Nobody was there. I wouldn't have touched it. My mum and dad hadn't been in the room. And there was all sorts of rappings and noises lay there at night, well, in the day even. And it weren't just creaking, it was like somebody thumping on the wall, like rapping on the wall. Yeah, all round the room. It used to move all around the room, up and down. And the worst one, this terrifies me even talking about it. 7:15 one morning, I woke up. My dad's already got up because he's getting ready to go to work. And it's a school day. And I was a teenager. And these things like to attach themselves, don't they, to teenagers? Well, this thing had attached itself to me. And 7:15, I've woken up, and I'm actually been woken up by what was like a rapping, a tapping on the ceiling above me. Now, it wasn't in the flat above me. It wasn't, because I knew like movement and noise coming from the flat. It wasn't that. It was on the ceiling in my bedroom, not on the floor in their flat. And it was like somebody was rapping above my head. It woke me up. And I thought, what on earth's that? And then it started to move along the ceiling to the window, and then along the wall above the window, all the way along to the opposite wall in front of my bed, where there was a shaft at the top of this wall, like a box. And that box on the wall was at the back of, in the bathroom next to my bedroom, had an extractor fan, because it didn't have a window in as such. So this extractor fan used to suck all the dust and rubbish out of the room. And this box was at the back of this extractor fan in my bedroom. And this tapping went along this box. This box was probably a good couple of feet long. And then back again. And then back along the wall. And then above the seat, like on the ceiling above my head. And I called my dad in, because it scared me. And as soon as my dad come in, it shut up. Well, this happened. If it happened once, it happened 10 times. And my dad was getting really annoyed. Like, I've got to get ready for work. Don't keep calling me in here. Words to that effect. He was getting really angry. He went to work. I got up. I went and had a shower, come back in the room, got ready, and it's still going on. By this time, my mum's got up. 8:30. So it's gone on from 7:15 in the morning all the way round to 8:30. I'm just about to leave to go to school. I've called my mum in the room a couple of times. Now, she has already been in rooms where she's heard rapping and tapping, and so she was quite believing, yeah. 8:30, I've called her in for one last time before I left school. I said, listen, she stood in the doorway. She heard it. All the times I called her in and it had stopped. This time she heard it. And she stood there and her chin hit the floor. Like, what is that? What on earth is that? She said to me, it sounds like a rat with hobnail boots going along this shaft and back. Anyway, I went off to school and she was like flabbergasted. She called someone in from the council, and some days later this guy came in and he got up on a ladder outside where this shaft was, and there's an air brick, and he shone a light through the air brick, and he's with a torch, and he's had a look, and he said the bottom of that shaft is covered in talcum powder and dust and fluff. If it had been some sort of rodent, if they'd have left a trail, it's undisturbed. This stuff was undisturbed. So whatever it was making that noise, it wasn't in the shaft, it was outside. And like I said to you, it was on the ceiling, not the floor. It was in the room with me.
And how old were you, Carol? Horrible, scary.
I mean, you know, the Enfield poltergeist, there's lots of skeptics out there. And while I think with that, maybe the girls did play up to it a bit, because they had like press and people living in their house virtually. And I think, you know, maybe they did play up to it a bit. Who knows? I don't disbelieve them entirely. I do not, because I know what I went through as a child, and that was nowhere near as bad as what they were. You know, things being thrown around the room and that. I didn't witness anything like that, but certainly something was in that flat. Yeah.
Do you remember moving out? Where did you move out to? Did you have strange things happen to you when you went to the next place, or do you think it got left there?
No, my mum and dad stayed there, and I moved out. I think it kind of died down, and I think whatever it was attached to me as a teenager. But you know, thank God, you know, I got older and it kind of went.
And thinking about sleep paralysis, your daughter, Was it your
Yeah,
daughter,
I've
or
had
have you also had it?
I've had it, but Becky had it a lot more than me, I'd say. At one time, she was getting it so much, and it was really troubling her. And she read up about it, and you're supposed to relax into it and not fight it. And there is some theory that sleep paralysis is actually at the end of you astral projecting. It's when your astral body comes back into your earthly body. And I told her that, and she went, "Oh, don't say that. That means I've astral projected." Who knows? Who
Don't know,
knows?
do we? There's not enough research done into it, is there? So
No,
thinking
no,
about
there's
your
not.
sleep paralysis, what did it feel like to you? What happened? What did you see?
Well, it's not pleasant.
No, it isn't pleasant. No.
I remember one stage. It was horrible. I had my eyes open and I could see people moving around my bedroom. It was
Oof.
horrible. I was awake asleep, if you know what I mean, or sleep awake.
And how old
And
were
there's
you?
nothing I could do about it. How old? I was an adult at that time. That's in my old house, so I was probably in my 30s.
And do you
Yeah,
think you had a stressful life at the time?
I did. I did at that point. Yeah, I did have a stressful life at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, it
thank
seems to
God
be
I haven't
quite a
anymore.
common, it seems from what I've heard from people, it seems to be quite common that when you have the sleep paralysis, when you look back at it, oh yeah, it was during a time when I did have a lot to worry about and I was really
Yeah,
stressed, and sort of makes you more vulnerable. It makes you not sleeping deeply, you're in that
yeah,
sort of in between state.
yeah. But anybody out there listening to this who gets it, don't fight it. Just relax into it. That's what you're meant to do. Just go back to sleep.
But it makes you scared to go to sleep at night, doesn't it? If you have it
Yeah,
over and over again, it puts you off
yeah,
wanting to go to sleep because you're scared in
yeah,
case it happens again.
yeah. But my mum, as a child, this was when we lived in Finsbury Park, in our flat in Finsbury Park. She came in the room one night and she said I was asleep with my eyes open.
Oh,
I don't remember that. And that I was probably about 5 at the time. Yeah.
but it just went off on its own, did it? Is that what you're saying? It just went.
What, the sleep paralysis? Um, yeah, but I don't think, it's not to say I would never get it again, but if I did get it, I'd know more to not panic.
Thinking about 11/11
Yeah, yeah.
and your daughter, when your ex-mother-in-law died, she kept seeing 11/11 everywhere.
Yeah, like almost several times a day. She'd be like texting me or photographing things. Rose died, her grandmother died. This was my ex-mother-in-law. And all she kept seeing everywhere, in books she was reading, road signs, magazines, television, every 5 minutes she'd see 11/11 everywhere. And then we were in the shop, weren't we? And we saw that. I'll have to send you that photo.
Send me the photo and I'll put it on.
Yeah,
Because we're sitting
yeah,
there and you're telling me this story about the 11/11 and you looked up behind my head and there's a display of books on the wall in a actual clock shape
yeah,
with
yeah,
each book up there, one for the number 1, one for the number 2, one for the number 3 with book titles. And on the number 11, it had the book title 11/11.
yeah, yeah. That was
While we
it.
were sitting there talking about it. That's it. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
literally above my head, behind
yeah,
me. And the
yeah.
other thing
But
was the seeing the UFOs. And the thing that I reminded you about, which you might not be able to remember what it was, about the Kinks and Dave Davis from the Kinks. There's going to be a connection. I'm talking about coincidence, but you can't remember what it was. I know we did have a conversation about it, but I can't remember what it was.
because maybe it was because if you read his biography called Kink, Dave Davis, he talks about seeing UFOs.
Does he?
And yeah, so might have been that.
Might have been that. So thinking about the UFO then, what was the UFO story?
Right, I was walking down Hampstead High Street towards Hampstead Tube Station. Hampstead High Street Tube Station, there's two. There's Hampstead Heath and there's Hampstead High Street. And I was walking down towards Hampstead High Street Tube Station with my then fiance, I think he was then, and my first husband, who went on to be my first husband, and my friend Julie and her boyfriend at the time, Dean. And there was also a couple who we weren't with behind me. And it was the woman of that couple that said, "What's that up there?" and pointed. And so she's seen it, her boyfriend's seen it, I've seen it, Chris has seen it, and Julie and her boyfriend Dean have seen it. We looked over the road, and there was what I would describe as probably about 6, maybe 8 red lights vertically, and they were going round in a spiral, coming downwards in a spiral. And they disappeared behind the buildings on the opposite side of the road. And I've never known what that was. It was weird.
And you
6
all
of us
saw
have
it.
seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Dave Davis connection was just in his book, Kink. He talks a lot about seeing UFOs, and he's very, very into it.
Dan Aykroyd is as well. You know Dan Aykroyd, the actor?
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd, he was in Ghostbusters, I think.
Yeah.
He went on the Joe Rogan podcast and was talking about the Men in Black. Have you heard about the Men in Black? You know, these people that show up. I know, they just wear like a black hat and they look like they're from the FBI or something.
We missed out because I've seen one.
The man in hat. The black hat.
Yeah.
The hat. That's
so it was a time when it was fairly recently, this sighting. I don't know if I'd just come back in after doing an astral projection or just leaving, but I remember reading about this black hat man. And some people think he's quite evil, but other people think, no, he's not. And you've got to like mentally, like, just don't be scared of him. Just challenge him. Just like, you know, don't let him threaten you. Because if you're frightened of him, then it will be a problem. But in the corner of the room, I could see a silhouette of this black hat man. And I was like, whatever. You know, I'm not going to let it intimidate me. Just briefly, I saw it in the corner of the room by the window. Yeah. I mean, there's been some horrific sightings. People have said that he's been like on top of them. He's got glowing red eyes. I didn't see anything like that, and I didn't feel threatened. But I was aware of this thing in the corner of the room.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't put you off astral projecting?
No. With anything like that, you've got to stand up to them. You know, you're not gonna intimidate me. You're not gonna hurt me. You can't hurt me. You can't scare me.
But the thing is, it's this thing that wants to scare people. So it's got the potential to scare people.
Yeah.
So it can't be a good thing, can it?
Some people think, I've read bits about it, some people thinking it's like a part of you. It's like a projection of yourself. And it's not evil. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to comment on that. But all I know is if I saw it again, I'd treat it almost with contempt. Like, you're not going to scare me. Yeah.
Thanks, Carol.
All right. Yeah. And I've started keeping a synchronicity list.
Have you? Well done.
Yeah.
What sort of things have been coming up?
Right. So when I've lost a friend recently. She was in her late 70s, I'd say.
What was her name?
Val Riley. I've got a funeral next week. And she was like a bit of a mother figure to me. And the night she died, I was watching Ben Fogle, and he said, everybody needs a substitute mum.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a couple of synchronicities. I'm wondering if I can have a look. Hang on, while I'm on the...
Have a look. Funny you should say that, actually. I've just remembered, right? Something's just come back to me. I was just about to say to you, well, when I hear the name Valerie, I'll let you know. And this was a few months ago now. Everywhere I went, I would hear them singing that song. Come on, Valerie. You know that song, Valerie? You know that song? Was it Amy Winehouse did it? She did a cover of Valerie, right? I went to, I'm not joking, I went to Tenerife. They were singing Valerie. everywhere I went, there was a busker singing this same song. And I was like, what is this? So once out in the street in Tenerife singing that, get back to the hotel, there's an evening, to do with a music band. They start singing that song. There's no connection between those two bands. And then I walked down Southern High Street and the busker's singing the same song. So I've heard it 3
Weird, isn't
times.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know next time I hear or see the name Valerie. And if there's anyone out there watching, let us know
Yeah.
if you see any Valerie related synchronicities.
Right. I've got a list of synchronicities. RNLI program set in Queensferry Bridge, the river. Right. So that's where Scott jumped.
Oh.
Yeah. So the RNLI program I'm watching is about a rescue on that river, and then there was a man suffering in the water, and this upset me and reduced me to tears. So I've had to ask Ray to switch over because I just thought this man was so distressed in the water. I thought that could have been Scott, that might have been what he was like. It really upset me. Anyway, so I've asked Ray to switch over channels, and he's turned over, and the first thing I saw when he turned over was a couple of Highland cattle.
I saw one yesterday in Leigh, in a shop in Leigh. There's a giant picture of a Highland cow, and my son and I, we stood there, and he went, "Look, it's a Highland cow." And I said, "That's not a cow, it's a bull. It's got 2 horns." And we went closer. No, it was the Highland cow. It was a cow. Big picture. I know, I should have taken a photo, shouldn't I? I'll go back and take a photo.
Yeah. So that was that one. And then there was the one about everyone needs a reserve mum. That was Ben Fogle on the day that Val died. I wrote something, I'm going to say something at the funeral. And then just after I'd written it, on my phone, on Facebook, came up, when someone you love dies, it changes your life forever. It's not something you ever get over. The loss now becomes a part of who you are. I saw that immediately after writing what I did for Val's funeral. And then after I found out that Nimrod is going to be played at her funeral, which is a particularly sad bit of classical music, I think it's Elgar, Nimrod, it came up on an advert advertising for something to do with funeral services, and this person said, "Wasn't that a lovely funeral service?" Just as I'd found out about her having Nimrod at her funeral, this person on the telly said, "Wasn't that a lovely funeral service?" Hang on, Becky posted something about 9 impressive health benefits. Oh, yeah, that was it. Yeah, Becky had an ear infection, and I've said to her, put steamed onion on your ear, because I'm very homeopathic. I don't, she's having antibiotic drugs and they're not doing any good. So I've said to her about putting a steamed onion on her ear, and then there's something came up on her phone. There's a fairly good chance that onions are entirely responsible for me not yet having succumbed to the awful treatment I put my body through. 9 impressive health benefits of onions came up on her phone.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Know your onions.
Yes, I'm keeping a list of them now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carol. Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about Valerie, though. Val. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And now, as we've been talking about it and thinking about it, you'll get some more synchronicities about that, I'm sure.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'll let you know if anything comes up. Thanks, Carol. I feel weird about ending this thing. I'm thinking, have we spoken about everything we need? Is there anything else we need to say?
I don't know, but I'm definitely going to keep this list of synchronicities going. So, yeah, no doubt we'll do some more.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, Carol.
All right, then. See you soon.
Take care. Bye. Bye.
All right.